So that's a pretty big kind of summary of this album. However, I think it's quite important to kind of explain that, you know, you were already on this journey, getting the script together. We met, we had this journey with this album, and then before we were explaining the album, we were about to go into Brian Gorman's role, and there's another journey going on then, which is how then do you present this to the public? So you can relaunch an album, or if you're coming from a kind of half theatrical world and a half musical world, the idea then was, right, can we do something at Modern Oxford that actually is a bit more, it was musical but a bit more theatrical? And that's when we kind of were thinking about Brian, because he's done New Dawn Phase you were talking about.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot to sort of recap that, but basically Brian has been on tour with this particular production for the last 10 years. And I knew straight away, I could fix various components together, because I saw Martin perform, is it Gary I Love You? I went to see that live. That
was at Modern Oxford.
That was, and I was so impressed with what Martin had done, how he told this story in a theatrical way, a comical way at times, but with the help of some media, and he sang these tracks, and I thought, wow, we've got a show here. So it was putting together some key elements, and it just took its own course. And we did a show at Modern Art Oxford last year. I think it was just after Easter.
And Brian's role, he was more kind of bringing his same role from New Dawn Phase, which is essentially playing Tony Wilson.
Yes, he played Tony Wilson, who was of course known as Mr. Manchester. He was the exponent of Factory Records, which put Joy Division, New Order on the map, various other bands that followed suit. And so I wanted a little bit of that history, a little bit of that context in our production, which was really good, telling the story of Mancbeth, which you sort of played a character, one of the gang members, talking about his relationship with Mancbeth, how
I kind of witnessed his goings on, and I was being interviewed by Tony Wilson as a musician in Manchester at the time, saying I witnessed it and I've written these songs. So it was a kind of a story within a story idea.
Yes, I mean, we sort of adapted it into a TV show.
Yeah.
With a few adverts.
Yeah.
And
it's kind of inspired a little bit by, was it The Other Side of Midnight and Anything Goes?
Yeah, Anything Goes. These were Tony
Wilson kind of Granada. Yeah. So again, anyone who knows about that musical history in Manchester will see the little kind of Easter eggs we're putting in there. But then that was good. But then I think underlying it all was a desire to get it up to Manchester, really. And then we start thinking, right, who do we speak to? Is this someone at Factory? Is this someone, of that history, musical history we can speak to? And then we had this idea of chatting to Rowetta, formerly of Happy Mondays, and also the John De Silva, the legendary DJ at the Hacienda, who introduced Acid House in the early days there. So we were lucky enough to chat to them, and they came on board for a show in Manchester, Band on the Wall.
Band on the Wall, which was a massive, at the time I don't think we felt it was a risk, but we knew we had to get it into a sort of a decent venue, and I think Band on the Wall were and ahhing, because we wanted to originally stage it as a theatrical show, but we had to sort of drop that idea.
So Brian was still there. Brian was still being Tony Wilson on stage interview, but it was more of a kind of musical piece, wasn't it?
It was. It was again Brian introducing these acts, and we did still tell the Mancbeth story in sort of vague fashion, but the lineup was huge.
So Rowetta did, interestingly, when we approached her, I just thought, oh well, amazingly, she might kind of like do some kind of backing vocal, which is kind of, I can't believe I approached Rowetta going, can you do some backing vocal? She obviously said no, I want to do her own thing, and she was quite kind of quick to say, I'd love to do some Joy Division stuff. She'd always say, I'm a punk at heart, right? So for her to go back to Bannerwall, she's played there a few times in the other day, and we got the band Shadowplay, who have played with Peter Hook and stuff, and obviously so she was keen to do those songs as part of the kind of all night experience. So that was great, and she then did some kind of like a house set, didn't she? A little bit with John on the decks, and then obviously having John there saying he'll do a kind of acid house set at the end. So we were kind of recreating Glammies, and we've got to explain that Glammies is kind of, is it Glams?
It's Glams.
Yeah, so you've created this kind of alternative hacienda reality of Glammies the club, and we kind of recreated that at Band on the Wall with Loretta playing during the song, with John the Still DJ, and then the Mancbeth band doing the Mancbeth album. So it felt, and obviously the act's been introduced by Tony Wilson. We've got to remember that Tony Wilson, as legend has it, I think this is true, signed Joy Division at Band on the Wall. You know what I mean?
I'm not sure. I can't remember.
They played there.
They definitely.
So on the same
there.
stage with performing, and so there's all this Manchester history, and it just felt right, and it was a really good night, and it just kind of came together as a concept.
And we were amazed when Rowetta sort of turned up, because she'd never sort of played with Shadowplay, and I thought, God, it's going to take some time to get these two sort of separate entities together. And I mean, when Rowetta got on stage, she just smashed it, didn't you? Yeah. I mean, the fact that they almost synchronized together, I just couldn't believe it. I was just shocked how brilliant it was. I think the rehearsal lasted about 20 minutes, didn't it? They didn't have to do any more.
No, just the pure power of Rowetta's voice, and you have to see it really. And in the sound check, it was like the first 5 minutes. It was like, I mean, I don't know if she'd ever relate to someone like Tina Turner, but when you hear someone who's just got such a powerful voice and it just comes out, and you think, is that voice coming out of that body? And so I was really impressed. And then on the lineup, we also got Maria Urzo, who's a really kind of nice contemporary electronic artist. We got Means of Production, who did remix.
They were superb.
It was an live acid house act. So overall, it was really good. And then we actually went raving after with John De Silva in Manchester at the White House. I think it was about 4 or 5 in the morning. So the whole thing was really good fun. And it could have been it. However, there's also now a stage coming up, which why we're kind of doing this little chat, which we then thought, well, how do we keep the musical element of this going? Well, because you're obviously raising funds for the movie at the moment.
At the moment I've got the EIS Enterprise Investment Scheme backing from HMRC. So we're at this important juxtaposition of going out there and approaching some tangible investors to plough money into this film project. It's for my film company, and Mancbeth being the primary film project. And
so while that's happening, to keep it all going in terms of the branding and the music, we now have the Mancbeth Remixed out. So what's interesting about this is going back to some of the connections in Oxford. We've approached, I think it's 15 different electronic artists in Oxford, and they picked a track each. There's 17 tracks in total. I've done a remix as well, and that's going to get launched on October the 2nd at the Bullingdon in Oxford. And this is a way that we can almost kind of relaunch the whole Mancbeth brand, but in a kind of almost more electronic, even more kind of crazy way.
Which is fantastic. I mean, I love Martin's approach to this, because I didn't know he was going to sort of really kickstart this again, as much as we had a lot of success with the first album, but the fact that he revisited it, and I just love the sort of democratization of the Macbeth story, and Shakespeare being this sort of channel, because I'm listening to this quite consistently in the car, and there's so much detail there. I mean, there's a lot of tracks that I really, really love. Again, it follows an interesting sort of subliminal kind of arc. And I thought, wow, there's loads of possibilities, and I'm seeing images of the film when I hear more of this music actually from the remixed album, because it really sets the tension. Someone said to me, gosh, this is really dark in places, and I thought, Yes, it is, but there's also light. There's all these sort of contrasting moments. So I'm really grateful to all the DJs.
We should say who's actually on it. Let's do a quick roll call.
Yeah.
So we have In-Flight Movie, Moogie Man, Multi-Fari, Tiger Mendoza, Cholly, The Sub Fury, Silent Weapon, Means of Production, Zarbi, Kamikaze Space Program, Mojave, I4M2, Flights of Helios, Babymaker, Volcanic Shores, and myself.
Yeah, well done.
So that's coming up. For you, David, what do you think? Once that gig's out of the way, you want to be raising the funds. Are you thinking maybe going back to Manchester? You were talking, because there was this interesting kind of crossover at one point when we've obviously been on this journey for the last couple of years, and it kind of felt we were doing that prior to the Radiohead stuff that was happening up in Manchester when they were doing kind of stuff with Hail to the Thief and Hamlet.
Yeah.
And we've been on this journey a little bit while, and obviously this was happening in Oxford, so it's kind of like, that was interesting how they may have picked up something else happening before they did their thing. Now their thing's happened. Is there opportunities back in Manchester now? People realise that this sort of production can happen.
Well, I have written to Factory International again. I did propose this project, but Radiohead, Tommy York had already moved forward with the Hamlet Hail to the Thief, which again it's interesting that he's diversified into a Shakespeare theme. So that's quite good because it's something of interest. I think it was well attended. We were trying to get to the production at Stratford-on-Avon, but that didn't quite work out. So I thought, right, I'll revisit the Factory International people again. I mean, they might reject it, but I'll just keep going. Meanwhile, the real trajectory is for me is raising money for the film, because now people are starting to talk about when is it going to happen, and I put together a team of people, and that all emanated from Band on the Wall, and I can expand that team further, but initially we just need some investors to just to inject a little bit of money into it. But I also on the sort of to run parallel with it, I'd like to create a theatre show, and there's two versions of what we can do with it. Firstly, transpose that original Mao production, modern art Oxford production with Brian Gorman, as a play in itself, but also run the Mancbeth version, the Shakespeare version as well. But I'd like to use music in that. So there's all sorts of exciting possibilities, but the most important thing at the moment is to raise money for that film.
Okay, so if you want more information, where can you find that?
You can contact me on David at mancbeth.co.uk. That's Mancbeth, mancbeth.co.uk.
There's also a Bandcamp for the music, which is mancbeth.bandcamp.com.
Yes.
So you can order the 2 albums and T-shirts and all these sort of things there.
Yes. And yes, I do have a listen, because it's something new. We've kind of created a little bit of a Shakespeare renaissance of sorts. Revisiting. I suppose it's not been done. Has there been a Shakespeare renaissance? I don't know, but we're using that as a theme, as a starting point. But it's an interesting thing to jump on board and sort of develop new ideas. So it might lead to other projects.
Yeah, and I think the great thing is I've been given creative freedom to do this project, and we just don't know where it's going to go next. And really, it's just down to the people out there who responds to it, who gets involved, and we never know what happens next.
Yeah, we don't really care, do we?
Well, thanks a lot, Dave.
Yeah, brilliant.
Okay, thanks a lot. Yeah. Okay.